Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Millcreek Government Channel. I'm Jessica Stutzman. An election is the formal and organized process of voting in a democracy, choosing someone to stand for you as the political representative in government. Your vote can influence many important decisions with regards to how your school district, municipality, county, state, and country operates. Joining us today to discuss voting and registration is the Erie County Clerk of Elections, Doug Smith. Doug, thank you so much for joining us today.
I'm very happy to be here, Jessica. Thanks for having me.
Well, we have a lot to talk about. I know we have some upcoming very important elections in Millcreek Township and Erie County. But what I want to touch on first and foremost, who is eligible to vote in an election?
Well, any U.S. citizen who is at least 18 years of age and has resided in the municipality where they live for at least 30 days before the election.
And it's so important, I think, even when, like I said, when you just turn 18, go to get yourself registered to vote. I know that, you know, we had a government class in school, and you know, and they highly encouraged all of us to go and get registered to vote. So the second I became 18, I was registered.
That's wonderful, because so many people of a younger age really don't get out and vote in great numbers. The image of a polling place with older people and older voters is not just a cliche, but in fact is so, and it's a shame. A shame, because all those policies that are decided, all those tax questions that are decided are issues that young people, they pay taxes as well. And if as a younger person, if you don't participate, obviously you're deferring that decision making to someone else.
Right. And I think there's so many, you know, hot topics in the news right now that, you know, people want their voice heard. This is the way to do that.
Absolutely.
So the first, actually not the first thing, but the second thing I want to touch on is an election district. This, for somebody who's maybe not familiar with the process, they're wondering what an election district is.
Well, an election district is just a geographic section of the county. There are 150 election districts in Erie County as a whole. And in fact, in Millcreek, we have now 25 election districts, and that just allows for, really for you to vote with your neighbors in your neighborhood. And we've just created a new district in Millcreek because of the great population growth throughout the years. People that were in Millcreek 23 and voted at Alliance Church, we were up over 3,000 voters, and as many can attest, it was a long wait on some election days, and so we wanted to address that after the presidential so that there wasn't any confusion on such a big day like that. So we have now Millcreek 25, which is a smaller district. Millcreek 23 remains. Also slightly smaller than before. They will vote at Alliance Church as they have in the past, and our new Millcreek 25 voters will vote in a new church, Abiding Lutheran, on West Grandview.
Okay, and how are they notified of this change? In the mail, or how are they notified? At the last election?
They are going to receive a postcard in the mail. Anytime that a polling place changes, we send a postcard to voters. We'll also, of course, do programs like this and speak with media to spread the word before Election Day. Okay,
wonderful. And you did mention how many districts are in Erie County. Go ahead and give that number one more time.
150 now.
150. And then you said that's based mostly on, you know, population density and how many people are showing up to each poll, so they're not waiting in long lines.
That's right. The election code allows for these small subdivisions so that you're absolutely correct. So there aren't longer lines, and you don't have one large district that perhaps receives too much representation while others suffer.
Okay, great. And how do you register to vote? Again, I registered to vote a long time ago, and I just recently had to get my information updated because I changed my last name through marriage, and I moved. So how does one register to vote and then maybe update any of that information?
Well, the nice thing is, Jessica, it's easier than ever before. Governor Wolf implemented online registration last year. So now you can go to our website, eriecountypa.gov, or register at pavotes.com, and you can register online, or you can make changes, as you just talked about. There's also the traditional ways of sending in a form through the mail or coming into our office directly.
Of course, of course. And it's very simple to fill out the information, so it's not difficult to do. And I know I get this question a lot, and I know we kind of already touched on it even. When it comes time to election day, do voters get to ever choose their voting poll location, or can they ever switch it? They're locked into their one polling place.
Yes, the polling place is assigned to a particular district. So if you reside in that district, we encourage you to vote there. If you happen to go somewhere else, you'd probably be given a paper ballot called a provisional ballot that would allow you to vote on election day not in your district. However, the downside of that is if you, for instance, resided in Millcreek and you showed up at a city polling place, you wouldn't be able to cast votes for mayor or city council and those sorts of things. And you would lose that ability to vote for your own supervisor, tax collector, whatever the case may be.
Sure. And what are the election days for 2017?
The election days for 2017 are May the 16th. That's our primary election coming up. And in the fall, it's November 7th.
November 7th, okay. And are there any, and I'm sure actually every year there are big positions to be filled, but are there any big positions that, off the top of your head that need filled for 2017?
Well, this is what we call a municipal or local election year. So, I mean, really the presidential election gets all the talk and we see all the voters come out for that, but it's really these local elections that have the greatest impact on our lives. So here in Millcreek, there's going to be a supervisor position, a tax collector, auditor, 4 members of the school board, also a magisterial district judge position. So a number of very important positions that really have a direct and lasting impact on Millcreek citizens.
And I think you're right. I think it's so important to make sure you get out and vote during those local elections because it really does impact what happens to you in your very own backyard.
That's right.
And here are some of the questions I get on election day, on the specific day itself. What times do the polls open and close that day?
The polls open at 7 a.m. on election day and they close at 8 p.m. And as long as you're in line, when they close the doors at 8 p.m., you'll be allowed to vote. You wouldn't be shut out of the process or so forth. Many voters really work hard and want to be that first through 10th person, and they'll show up before 7. So
I did notice that. I voted before work at this last election and tried to get there right around 7:15. Thought I'd give myself a little bit of time, and that line was, out the door and all the way in the parking lot. And I did hear at the same polling station, I heard that if I would have waited until about 5 or 6 o'clock, you walked right in. So not always going before work is always the fastest option.
Well, it is, especially on a busy day like a presidential, why we always encourage people to look at some of those off times.
Right.
I mean, there are going to be lines, but there aren't lines that often, and I don't expect there to be big lines this year, for instance.
Right, right. And what happens if a voter forgets where their polling station is on that day? So they wake up that morning and they forget where they're supposed to vote.
Sure, but it's not uncommon. And, you and I maybe think about these sorts of things all the time, but quite often voters don't give these sorts of things a whole lot of thought before the election is sort of upon them. They can call our office, 451-6276. I'll let you put those numbers out maybe later. And they can always call the office on election day and find out where they vote. They can also look online. We have a list of polling places on the Erie County website, so they're able to look at that. And also, there's a Find Your Polling Place link that they can go to and find their own polling place as well.
Great. And so your office is open the day of
Oh,
the
absolutely.
election?
It's a busy day and the phones never stop.
Yes, of course. I know our phones do ring off the hook that day too. And if a voter needs transportation help to and from that day, where can they find, either a ride to the polls or a ride back from the polls?
Typically, the Republican and Democratic county parties have a ride service on Election Day that they advertise, but that information is also available at our office. So call us on Election Day if you find yourself in that sort of situation where you need a ride.
Of course. And if a voter doesn't have access to the internet and they're brand new to their location, or it is a brand new location, where can they get written directions? Can they stop into your office, or do you have a better suggestion for them?
I suppose really for written directions, that would probably be the place. There really isn't a whole lot of that type of resource out there. But again, if they can make a phone call, we can help them find their polling place, including directions.
Right, verbal directions, over the phone, or even if you stop into the local library, I know there are computers available for people to use, and of course you can get help Googling directions or whatnot.
You bring up a good point too, and while we're happy to help people on Election Day, we talk about voting being a responsibility and a privilege and a duty. And part of that duty, I'd say is try to find out some information before Election Day. Give yourself that gift of knowledge, Investigate your candidates a little bit. Try to learn something. It makes the whole experience a lot more fulfilling.
Right, because of course you don't want to go in not knowing much information about who the candidates are, and we'll show you how to use this new voting machine. But you want to go in with some background and feeling good and feeling comfortable with who you are voting for.
Absolutely.
So if someone is 18 years old and fresh to voting, or maybe somebody hasn't gone in a few years, what can somebody expect from their very first time at the polls?
Well, they're going to go into maybe a church or a school, and they're going to find as they go in that there is a table set up with a panel of probably their neighbors that will look in the book and find their name. They'll have to sign a document when they do that, and then they'll be given a slip that shows they've been through that process, and they'll get in line and be escorted over to a voting machine. They tend to be spaced apart, so there's at least a decent amount of privacy for people. There isn't a curtain like with the old mechanicals, but there are wings on the machines, and so a person can feel comfortable, I think. And if they were to have a question, let's say, we encourage them to raise their hand, and someone will come by and help them. And we do have one of the newer machines here in the studio with us, and you were telling me, how old are these machines? This is a DRE, or a direct recording electronic machine. Erie County switched to this model in 2005. The prior 50 years they had been using mechanical machines. Right, and I do remember the full curtain and all the levers. I was very excited to start voting, and I don't think I got to vote on the old machine. It was like one of those iconic things your parents and grandparents did, and I was just bummed I missed it. They make a good paperweight. They do. They were huge. And so when we get there, do we have to show identification or a driver's license or anything like that? First-time voter, or if you're new in a precinct, you will be asked for identification. Beyond that, there's no requirement for it. Right. Sometimes, if the line is long, people have their ID out, excuse me, to sort of hurry the process. And so you might be asked on that occasion, but it's not a requirement by any means. Okay, and you did say if somebody needs help, they can just raise their hand, and one of the assistants and volunteers will come over and help you out with whatever you need. There's two ways that can go. If you want someone to come behind the curtain, so to speak, and join you, you'll have to sign a form allowing that that person to go behind. Otherwise, they're going to stand on the off side of the machine and sort of talk you through it. But these machines, while they are computerized, they're really more like a microwave. They're very simple to operate, very soft touch, and you know, it's funny, and you probably run into the same thing with nieces or nephews that are younger. You put a person in front of that from that age group, and it's very intuitive. And
Right.
you know, as we get older, we get a little more confused about the obvious when it comes to that.
I know.
Myself included.
I know. That's happened to me where I couldn't figure out something on my phone and I put it in front of, you know, a 12-year-old and they got it. And, you know, so these are very, you know, very similar. But you can't mess it up. I know you know, was worried the first time I was, you know, voting for the very first time, and was I going to mess it up? Was I going to vote for the wrong, you know, person and have it register the wrong thing? But you really can't. And then at the very end, before you hit vote, it lets you see all of the options on the screen that you've chosen.
There are a lot of safety features inherent in the system that help you along. And really the hardest thing I think people had to get used to with this system was having to really read the screen. If you read the screen and follow the prompts, it's very simple.
And you are given an option when you first vote to either vote all, you know, Republican or all Democrat, like just, you know, straight for your party, or you are given the option to go through each candidate and, you know, to look at each one and vote however you want to vote. Vote either way.
That's right. And of course it depends on the election. This spring is a primary, so Democrats will vote for Democrats. Republicans will vote for Republicans. That is how the parties select their candidates. And then again in the fall, as you said, there's that opportunity if you wish to vote straight, you're able to.
Okay. And why don't we get into the nitty-gritty of the machine? I know you've got a few things on the desktop here. So how does this electronic voting machine actually work?
Well, as I said, this is a direct recording electronic touchscreen machine. The technology was developed actually back in the early 1990s. It's been around a long time. We feel it's a very safe, secure system. What I'm holding in my hand here are two of the devices, media that are interactive with this particular machine. This is called a PEB, Personal Electronic Ballot, and this is what activates the machine, loads a ballot onto it. The machines themselves are really a vessel. This is where the software resides that loads onto the machine. And this is a memory card, kind of like you might find even in a camera. And this also stores the votes at the end of the day. So you've got really several options. Besides copying results into something like this, we have a master copy in this disk, but we also have about 5 other memory points inside the machine, so that even if these 2 items were destroyed in some mishap, we would be able to recover those votes. And that's something we found over time, that they're very secure. They've got multiple memory points, and so I believe people should be secure in the feeling that you know, their voting machines work well. These machines are not connected to the internet in any way.
That was my question. You know, can this be tampered with at all?
So there was a lot of talk about this hacking and so on, and these machines are not connected to the internet either before or after the process. They're in a closed network, and so the information is very safe.
Okay. And when, I know we get the election results, you know, the preliminary results that night of the election, but when is everything finalized?
The way the process works is on election night, all the results are copied onto a device like this, and then we take this device for every election district, the 150 that we talked about, and those numbers comprise the unofficial total. And then usually the Friday that follows election day, we will go and we will copy all the results off of this item, and then we compare the two and look for any differences. There have been occasions where a particular voting machine's results weren't counted owing to an error, and once we measure, or rather copy these items, all the votes are there that were cast, And so if there's a difference, we can see that there was a problem like that, for instance. So there is a fail-safe system that can assure proper results.
Of course. And so what happens then if the votes between two candidates are very close? Is there an automatic recount, or what determines, that we need to look into this further?
In Pennsylvania law, requires a recount if the percentage is less than 0.5%. There's also the ability for a candidate in a race to petition the election board for a recount.
Okay.
In which case we would really go through this process again, load the votes, reload the votes, and recount. I left out absentee ballots. Those are also counted on election night and checked again thereafter.
Okay, and I want to get into absentee ballots. What requirements must be met for someone to fill out an application for an absentee ballot?
Currently, absentee ballots are legally available for persons that are going to be out of the district, either on business or for a medical reason. I'll have to tell you quite honestly that I think people get absentee ballots for other reasons. Excuse me. And that's fine. We believe that everyone should vote, and if an absentee ballot suits them, we certainly aren't going to make a problem for anyone in that regard. And in fact, we expect our state legislature to change the laws soon so that there will be no fault absentee or absentee on demand, whatever the wording ends up being. But so to have an absentee ballot, that's really it. You just have to be someone who is not going to be available on election day. If you were to fill out, you have to apply. It's a two-step. So you apply for the absentee ballot. That's a hard form. There is no online component there. And then after you apply, you were able to vote the ballot and either mail it in, or what many people do, which I think saves time and worry, is they'll come to our office, apply and vote at the same time.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
And so when they come in, like you said, it's a two-step process. You come in, you apply for it, and then you receive your ballot to vote.
Right.
But you're not going in initially and just grabbing a ballot.
Oh, that's right. If you're not doing it in person, then once you apply, we will mail a ballot to you. And there are people, of course, in Erie County who are what we call snowbirds, and many of them have their ballots sent to their winter living spots in Florida or wherever it may be. So there's the option to send that ballot to another place.
Oh, okay, great. So I know a lot of people register to vote in high school and then they may go off to college afterwards. Are they eligible to grab an absentee ballot as well?
That's absolutely what we encourage people that are in college to vote absentee. Quite often when persons are away at college, it's easy to get caught up in voter registration drives and so on at those colleges, but you have to understand that if you do that, it's going to cancel your Erie registration. So we always encourage people, unless they know they're going to stay in that particular area, that they vote absentee.
Okay, wonderful. And the last thing I want to talk about is, what does it take to make for a successful election day? Do you have a lot of help from the community to work the polls and to do those counts and things like that?
Election days really are a gift to the community to itself. We have maybe 800 to 900 people who are working out at polling places across the county. They're working for really not a lot of money. A judge makes about $160, excuse me, and other positions on the polling board make $130, and that's for quite often a 12-hour day. So it's not big money. It really is a gift of citizenship, and I have to really tout my own staff at the voter registration office and the conduct of elections warehouse. They do a wonderful job, and this is our season. We get a lot of calls, and we are there to help you. So whether you're interested in running for office or you have a question about your own registration, we always encourage you to call us.
Okay. And if somebody, and you just mentioned it, if somebody feels like, he or she may be a good candidate to become, a township supervisor or a judge or something of the sort, where are their first steps and what qualities do you think they should have?
Well, they really have to be someone who's interested in service, I think. Unless you've been in public life a little while, it's difficult to appreciate the amount of time it takes and the sacrifice it takes to perform that job. Of course, there are some legal requirements that have to do with if you want to get on the ballot, you have to get signatures, have petitions circulated. Those can only be done at certain times of the year. So I think it's important, if you're thinking about a step like that, to do a little bit of research, and we can help you with that too.
So to contact your office.
Absolutely.
And go ahead, give your website and phone number where people can find you and your address again.
Sure. If you want to come down to the courthouse and see us, we're happy to talk to you. That's 140 West 6th Street, room 112. That's voter registration. You can call us at 814-451-6276 or 451-6303. That's my office. And our county web is www.eriecountypa.gov.
Wonderful. And folks, I know that we've got this machine here, so I'm sure you've seen us use it throughout the program. Doug, I want to thank you for being on the show today. This is so important, isn't it?
Oh, it's one of the most important things we do as citizens of this country. Thank you so much for having me on, Jessica.
Oh, you're welcome. Folks, I just want you to remember that your vote is your voice. So Doug and I want to definitely see you at the polls coming up this May and this November to get out there and vote, again, for people who you think are going to stand up and give you that voice that you need in local government and any other type of government. Thanks for tuning into the Millcreek Government Channel, and until next time, have a wonderful day.
You're watching the Millcreek Government Channel, powered by WQLN Public Media.